Before we dive into this, let's go back in time to the year 2017. I was just starting a channel as a young man, and I had an idea in my head about who should play Moon Knight if they ever made a Moon Knight film. I was thinking a Netflix series at the time. On my list, I proposed the idea of Oscar Isaac. I think he's a versatile actor who can play the depressive side of a character like this while going a little bit more insane. And then the video did okay. I went away to do other stuff, didn't come back to the channel. And then in 2019, I kind of came back to it because I was like, they're actually doing a Moon Knight show now. So Moon Knight is the reason this channel exists. Moon Knight is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. I love this character. I've always said it is my favorite fictional character, not in comic books, but in all of literature, because it is so rare that a character can just be so anything. Like, a character can just be adapted into any format, become any type of character, whether it's a comedic one, a dramatic one, anything like that. You can do any type of story with Moon Knight, and it makes sense to the character. So we got a TV show. I've talked about the promotional materials and the posters and the trailers and everything for this film leading up to its release. And I was like, I am hesitant on this show still because it seems like it's going to be a very distilled version of this character that is marketable to all audiences, while they say they're going to lean into the blood and the darkness and the horror aspects. So at the time of this recording, and this is a review for the first episode, so I've seen the first episode. I was not fortunate enough to get the screeners. I tried. Hopefully next year I could try to get some other stuff for it. We'll see. But we got the first episode of Moon Knight. It's about 45 minutes long. It is pretty interesting, to say the least. Now, I do not listen to other critics when it comes to stuff like this. Because I do this, I tend to try to form my own opinion as opposed to being agreed with or against what other people say about a character or a show. So I didn't really look at the reviews. I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score. It kind of started in like the mid 70s. It went up there to like the 80s. I will say this about Moon Knight. I don't hate this show. I will say this too. I hesitate to call it great. I would say it's pretty decent. And I think that's okay. One of the things I've talked about with this show was I really hoped it was going to be divisive. I don't want this to be the thing that everybody loves, and suddenly that's the version it becomes, like the globe-trotting adventurer with like the sick personalities in his head that are played off as jokes. I don't want that to be the case for this. And based on this first episode, I am very hesitant going forward on the show. So if I had to give it a 10 out of 10 rating, I don't want to do that just for each individual episode, but we'll probably do a big discussion at the end of all 6 episodes. Based on this first episode, episode 1, I'm literally right at a 5 out of 10 because I see what they're doing, and I think there's something to be said about what they're doing. I personally just don't feel the weight of this thing being special. First off, let's talk about this. They're saying it's going to be the scariest, the horror side of the MCU. It's there in that storyline. Like, the editing makes it sound like that. The score is immaculate, and I think it's a really good score. I don't think it's scary or horrific. It's just a darker tone, and that is the only thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. It's the only thing that makes this show different. Because it is as formulaic as every other Marvel show. You can see the beats coming a mile a minute. There is nothing truly creative about its story or ingenious about it. It is just a fish out of water who happens to be a part of a larger mythical world that we've seen before. Shang-Chi is like it, Ant-Man's like it, the Guardians of the Galaxy are like it, Doctor Strange becomes it. You see the guy who comes to this world, an already established universe, who shakes it up on his head. The character who just happens to shake it up on his head in this piece, well, it's just somebody who's connected to somebody who already knows this stuff, okay? It's the same guy. It's still Mark and Steven. Steven's just the one who's coming into this fresh face and doesn't know it, but Mark's already established in this universe. So I am just hesitant to say, and I don't understand where critics are coming from, or anybody, like, this is a new type of story in the MCU. It's really not. You could literally pinpoint, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, Stephen Grant is Scott Lang. The movies and the shows are completely different, but it's Scott Lang. Here's the suit, Hank Pym, that's Mark Spector. Then you got Hope, well, that's going to be our character of Layla. And they're serving a grandiose universe, whatever it's going to be. It's like you can feel the beats of the already established universe built into that with a character who's just coming fresh-faced into it. It's not original in that aspect. And I think that's okay. it doesn't need to change the formula too much because people like the formula. But when you have a character who is so ingrained in being different, I reread a couple of Moon Knight books the other day just because I wanted to get excited for the show again. There are so many different things it could play with. And again, this is the first episode, and I'm going to venture a guess with me personally, the first episode's going to be my least favorite. It just didn't just satisfy me for what I wanted this show to be. But I understand you have to establish a kind of already existing origin for a character like this because we are, I don't even know, 14 years into the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. We don't really need a classic origin story. So if you just tell us the character already exists, that's fine. We can all move past it. We all get that. But there is just so many of the beats you've seen before that don't really make it that special to me, and that's a shame. Because I kind of wanted this to just like sweep me off my feet. All it did was give me a little dance around the street, and I feel a little better about myself, but I'm still like, you could have, just swept me off my feet. Just like, show me something special. Treat me like the gal I deserve to be treated like. Come on, do that. But it did fine. And I do want to talk about the inciting incident that actually kind of kicks us off because I'm kind of mixed on it. So I watched this really late at night, and it was like, I'm going to stay up to watch it. So I was kind of semi-dazed when I watched it. I rewatched certain beats of it again just to get a feeling. Could somebody please tell me what the inciting incident was that leads Steven to be intrinsically drawn back to the voice of Khonshu and Mark? So they didn't really specify, and that's kind of like one of the big things that bothers me. We see mild-mannered Stephen Grant. He works in London at this gift shop in a museum. There's like an Egypt tomb or theme going on there. And then one day he just starts hearing these voices, and I can't remember what the incident was that incites him to hear these voices again. And this is kind of what's weird to me. I guess it depends how they play up the identity of Stephen Grant being connected to Mark Spector. It could be like he's been there since the beginning, which we've seen in certain interpretations, that has always been intrinsically connected to Mark, as he's always had the DID. But are they going to show it like he just was birthed now and suddenly just kind of like being back connected to the Egyptian mythology leads him there? Because he seems to be well aware that he loses himself when he goes to sleep, and that's when Mark takes over. So obviously Stephen does know there's something going on because he's got the sand around his bed. He chains up his foot when he goes to sleep. He knows something's going on. So why does it sound like he's just hearing the voices for the first time we're doing this? Why does he feel like he wakes up in random places? Why would the voices just be coming to him now if they already have him going to random places he's been before? That didn't sit clear with me, and that's kind of like, I think, my biggest criticism with the beginning of this. Things just happen because suddenly there's a camera in front of it as opposed to being a natural story. That was really weird to me, and I didn't really like that. One of the things I did really like, though, is Oscar Isaac. And I think I would relate this performance to exactly what Tom Hardy is doing in the Venom movies. It's just a really good actor who seems beaten down by studio films before, being like, okay, I'll do it if I can go insane. And he's going insane. He is screaming, he is tripping, he's all over the place looking like a disheveled freak in every scene. And it's really good. It works so well because this guy can't get his life together. He's missing dates. He can't remember when he gets a new goldfish, all this weird stuff. It's interesting, and it works. And that's the kind of thing I'm like, okay, let's do more of that. If we didn't build up to, like, the big reveal at the end, that's a solid premise for this first episode. This guy just suddenly can't wake up. He's losing his mind. And then because it's a Marvel property, it derails itself in the middle. Now, my favorite Marvel property to come out, I think, in a very long time has been WandaVision. And one of the things I loved about WandaVision was it actually broke the formula. Out of anything Marvel has ever done, I will say this right now, the only one to break formula was WandaVision because it was showing you the tropes and the life of television sitcoms and how it interacts in a real world of a woman losing her, life. That was great. WandaVision was great. And to me, we were so close to doing that here where we're like, okay, Mark Spector is a voice inside Stephen Grant's head who's guiding him on trying to do this thing. But then suddenly, for no reason, at like the beginning half of the story, there is this action sequence where we are in this mysterious town. We meet Ethan Hawke's Arthur Harrow, and suddenly we're just like in a big chase scene that looks really bad. And we'll get to that in a bit here. And that to me was like, this really came out of nowhere. Like, it's a weird chase scene where he blacks out a bit. He wakes up again. I do like the effect of him blacking out and waking up in a new location. That looks really cool. And that is something I really enjoy. That made it special to me and did something creative. But it was just like, okay, this is a Marvel property. let's have the action scene on the side of on the side of a cliff with "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go." Very weird, and I don't think it worked for the flow because it was very early on in the episode. And it felt like it came out of nowhere. And sure, is this supposed to be like what Steven is experiencing when he's not in his body? No, because Steven's a part of this now. It's just weird, and I don't like it. And then we'll see what happens with that, and we'll go to that. So I did kind of talk about the CGI there. It looks like a standard Marvel film. Like, one of the things I loved about WandaVision, it tried something with its cinematic feel. It used different visual cues and camera work and audio. That was awesome. This feels like we're just doing stuff at night, but still looks like a Marvel property in its full intention. And that could be annoying. I don't really enjoy what we saw there. It just looked so cheap, very green screeny, very blue screeny, didn't add much to the actual flow or the way things looked. I'm used to it, so I'm not going to complain. Look, from Hawkeye, the last one we got, this is a huge step up because Hawkeye was abysmal. So I can't complain about that. I just am very curious as to see where the show's going to go because as it stands, I wasn't very sold on this first episode. So mild-mannered gift shop keeper Stephen Grant, he suddenly realizes he's in possession of a scarab. He tries to sleep at night. He can't. He winds up in this weird village with this cult leader, Arthur Harrow. He recognizes him. He's like, you have the scarab I need. That was kind of a cool scene where he's trying to like physically give the scarab back to Arthur, but his body wasn't letting him. That's something creative. It's a very MCU way of telling this story. And that's another thing I want people to know. If you think this is not going to be funny, it's funny. And that's either good or bad depending on how you view things. It's still doing the classic Marvel jokes. They're not going to break the formula overnight. So don't expect this to be fucking Doom Patrol or Daredevil in terms of brilliance. It's not. It's not. It's still Marvel. It goes into a weird chase scene. And this is another thing I want to bring up. It's like, it's going to be bloody in the poster. He's holding like the crescent and there's blood dripping off it. Okay. I need to take a minute here just to stop and just be like, there's currently this thing going around Twitter and Facebook all over where we are seeing these side-by-side panels of edited versions of Falcon and the Winter Soldier with their bloody version and their non-bloody version. Some people are saying it's the parental controls. If you have the parental controls off, you will get the bloodier version. Other people are just like, they're editing their shit. And that upsets me to no extent, which we could get to in another video, editing art for the sake of interpretation or whatever the fuck. I want to say this. The show did something very subtle where we don't actually see Steven or Mark hurting a real person. There is blood on Steven's hands when he snaps back. So it's like, oh, we're establishing Mark is doing something to hurt him, but we're not actually seeing the physical blood being spilled. We are seeing the blood in the aftermath, but not actually seeing like Oscar Isaac beating the shit out of somebody. Very interesting. A very good use of being like, we're dark, but we're not going to show you the dark. You know, this isn't Wilson Fisk smashing someone's head off with a car door. It's like, oh, we're going to snap back into reality, blood on the fist. Obviously, he beat up those guys on the ground. That's it. And when we do get physical and seeing a guy beating someone up, it's a stupid dog thing. So it doesn't matter how it looks. It could be stupid blood that doesn't look realistic. It doesn't matter. So that is a very interesting choice that this show made. I cannot fault them for that because you are making this on Disney+. I've said before, there is a way to do this character where you don't need it to be R-rated. You don't need it to be PG-14 or any of that stuff. You just make it a little more silly. It's trying to strike all the balances, and that might be the problem with this first episode. I don't hate it, though. So we do get the scene, what we saw in the trailers, where Layla calls him. He's like, Mark, why do you have a weird accent? He's like, why are you calling me Mark? And it's like, okay. That's the set-off that something's wrong inside of him. During that scene, when he's going through the phone, we do get the contact from, like, the missed call for number 32, his first appearance in Werewolf by Night, from Duchamp. And this is our first reference to the expanded, I should say, I don't know why I just stuttered there so much, the extended universe of Moon Knight. Look, Jean-Paul Duchamp, you'll probably be showing up at some point. We can't do this without Frenchie. Even if Frenchie's just the pilot in the stuff with Layla and Mark and whatever they're doing, you gotta put Frenchie in it. I will accept that. If we don't get Marlene, okay, I'll accept that too. But you can't not have Frenchie. He's key. Okay? That's happening. Mark's just, in his mind trying to talk to him through the mirrors. A cool effect. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. I think one of my other criticisms is because I am familiar with the different personalities inside of the Moon Knight character. The way they interpreted them here, I'm not particularly a big fan of. So if I were to do this, and again, this isn't a criticism, it's not the comics universe, so I'm trying not to sound like I'm a bitter, resentful dick about it. I would have made the Steven character who works at the gift shop Mark, so he's like intrinsically connected to all that. Maybe he just doesn't remember he's a mercenary because the personality that is blocking him from having those memories is Jake Lockley. And then when this is all done and we get all the mercenary money, that's when we start with Steven. That's just how I would have done it. It doesn't matter. So far, we have no actual like identity for Jake Lockley. That might come later on if we get a second season or whatever the hell's coming up. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So yeah, I don't know about that. It's weird, and okay, it's kind of fun, I guess. It's kind of cool. The hallway scene, Marvel released the clip for when you see Khonshu bursting through the hallway to attack him. Very cool. I like the design for Khonshu. It's very creepy. It leads to some very fascinating moments that I do like. F. Murray Abraham's voice really caught me off guard. I don't know what I was expecting him to do. I think it just sounded a little too human. Maybe not human is not the right word. It didn't sound like as rough as I'd expect a giant bird skull to sound like. So that kind of just threw me off a little bit, but it was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. It worked for what it was doing. It does have semblances of like the Mummy, which I kind of think is cool. People are like, oh, it's Raiders. I think it's more like the Mummy because it's just a little bit more like this weird, like awkward dude running around this thing being chased by all these people while not really knowing what's going on. That's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's not bad. Weird show. I don't know anymore. I hope it gets a little bit better just because it didn't do that much to excite me. And that's the problem. Like, I like the idea of like these sleepless nights where he can't stay awake. He's trying to figure out how to control himself. He's missing literal full days. He's like, this date was 2 days ago. I missed it. Herp-de-derp. That stuff is kind of fun. But I think what really made me go, okay, now we can actually pick up some steam was the ending. So Arthur Harrow unleashes, I guess, some weird dog Jekyll mummy thing into the world. There's a chase scene in the museum. They go into the bathroom. That's where Mark's like, you have to let me have control and we can stop this thing. And when Mark gets control, that's when the suit of Moon Knight emerges around him and he beats up the dog. Okay. It looks cool. That's the shot in the trailer that got everybody sold. That's what ends the episode. And it's fine. I did like the idea of just like slowly walking our way into the bathroom to see that shot as if like we are the camera looking around a corner. That was cool. There's some great camera work in here, and that's something I really did enjoy too, where it's like, okay, look how beautiful and prestigious this is. Look at this like perfect use of shaky cam and being like up close and personal and all that stuff. Look at how we're going to edit this, where it's going to flash, 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 boom, new location. That stuff's really good. All the technical stuff that isn't the visual effects in this film looks fantastic. It feels great. It plays off great. All of the acting feels really strong. Mark Spector is a great use of that character where he's just kind of like bitter and angry at everything. This Stephen Grant is something I'm still not used to, and I don't know how I like it too much. But Oscar Isaac is breaking down mentally in this scene, and it's great to see. Ethan Hawke is genuinely terrifying. I know people are like, why didn't we use Bushman or any of the other villains? Because you want to get Ethan Hawke in here. He's pretty cool. He's probably, just from this first one, and like, okay, he's clearly working for Amit, or Amit. I think it's the crocodile lady, the one that's like the god of balance and justice and everything, where it like swings the pendulum and weighs the scales if you are a good person or a bad person. That's clearly where we're going with this, and I think that's fine. I have no problems with that whatsoever. This is all working in an interesting way. It's just a weird setup that feels very fast, very loose, that we didn't really give it a second gloss over, and that's fine. Half of the Marvel shit is bad anyways. I'm not going to complain that this isn't up to my expectations because I have been a fan of this character for so long. My expectations are going to be near impossible to meet. It will never be perfect, but from what we saw, I didn't hate it. I just don't think it's the mind-bending horror aspect trip that people are saying it is. It's solid, it's good, it's classic Marvel fun that works for a lot of people. That's going to make a lot of people happy. If you have never read a Moon Knight comic before, it's a pretty distilled version of his origin. And by origin, I mean, okay, here's his... Okay, fuck that. It wasn't an origin at all. This isn't an origin. It's just Stephen Grant waking up one day realizing, oh, I have an origin story to talk about later. Okay. That's interesting, I guess. That could be fun. I do think I'll like every other episode more. because this one's just Steven's having nightmares. He can turn into another guy. A big bird skull's talking to him. Ethan Hawke wants a scarab he's holding. Suddenly he's part of a larger universe. And he owns a goldfish, which is fine. Classic Marvel jokes, classic Eddie Brock just breakdown. It's all fine. It's all very fine and leads to some pretty standard television that doesn't change the game, doesn't break formula, isn't this mind-bendingly trippy good time people are saying it is. It is great camera work, great lighting, except for the parts where there's obviously the blue screen. I do think it is going to pick itself up and do better, but currently we could have had a great waltz across the floor, dancing our way across the streets, being something beautiful and majestic, just swept off my feet in the glory and beauty of the show. All we got was a solid 5-minute dance. So I can't complain about that. Oscar Isaac looks to be having fun, and I think if we take away anything from that, it's that he is back at Disney and he doesn't hate himself for doing it. So that's cool. That's something I can live with. If that's the sacrifice we have to make for this Moon Knight show, that Oscar Isaac is happy to work with Disney again, I'll take it. But it's okay. It's literally just solid. It's not special or unique. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's going the route of everybody's liking it, and maybe that's the problem I'm having with it, where it's like, this is breathtakingly beautiful. I'm like, is it? We've seen this a million times, but okay, if you guys think that. Maybe it's because I watch a lot of horror stuff, and it's not a genre I'm a big fan of, so I can see the tropes coming a mile away. Whatever. Moon Knight Episode 1, pretty okay. Nothing special. Very interesting. Very excited for the next one. So, yeah, there you go. I have waited a long time to talk about this, and it's kind of exhausting to say. It's just okay. It's amazing. 3 of my favorite comic book characters of all time. Clint Barton, Hawkeye, Danny Rand, Iron Fist, Mark Spector, Moon Knight. I haven't really liked any of their shows. That's a lot to say. But no, that's going to do it for this review of Moon Knight Episode 1. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. As always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck. Praise Khonshu.
Oh, demon, face the vengeance of the Moon Knight.